Gerlach. Minister, I want to raise with you today the proposed introduction of paid parking in Howth. And I want to start at the outset by saying that personally I'm not opposed to paid parking in all circumstances. I think it makes sense in certain cases. I know that certainly it was the businesses in Malahide that actually looked for paid parking to be introduced in their area because they were having a problem with people parking for the whole day, and that making it impossible for shoppers and for visitors to make short visits during the day. So I think it does make sense in some circumstances, and I think it makes sense in Dublin city centre as well, for the same purpose, that where there's a shortage of spaces and you need to actually free them up to give the maximum amount of people an opportunity to use them, then I think it's sensible. But that is absolutely not the case in Howth. There's, apart from a few fine days during the summer, there's never a problem with parking on the harbour in Howth. And so not only is it not necessary to introduce paid parking in Howth, it would also have a major negative impact on the area. It would put people off travelling to Howth to shop, both in marine businesses like our fishmongers, our restaurants, other retail businesses throughout the village. It would put people off travelling out to walk the pier, to walk around Howth Head, and to use our marine resources. And marine leisure is a huge draw for people to Howth. We have, I think, Howth Yacht Club is the biggest water sports club in Ireland, with 1,700 members. We have people who go scuba diving in Howth, sea kayaking, angling. There's a wide range of water sports in Howth, and in fact it's getting more popular over recent years. So there's a huge amount of activity going on, and one of the reasons why it's so attractive, such a wide range of users, is because there's free parking, because it's a difficult enough place to get to. And it is very much a day-long destination. It's not somewhere that people pop in and out of for half an hour. They actually make the journey over to spend the day there. So I've tabled this adjournment today to raise this issue with you. I have to say it came as a shock, and in contrary to your own department's plan that was launched by the Taoiseach and by Minister Coveney, the government's plan last year, that there would be the Marine Development Plan, and the first key objective of which, or key principle, was that there would be stakeholder consultation. And that people would be asked when major decisions are made. And in fact, it actually came to a complete shock to local businesses that this was being considered without having had any consultation. Rumours were circulating for months that it was being looked at, and then it emerged that the County Council and that the Gardaí have been asked for their views on an informal basis, but not actually any of the local business. So for the reasons that I've set out, there's huge opposition to this proposal. I know that the representatives from the Department of Marine met with some of the harbour users on the 7th of February, and these points that I've made here were articulated very strongly by a wide range of groups at those meetings. I know that written submissions have also been made by the Yacht Club, the Sea Kayaking Club, the Howth Sutton Baldoyle Chamber of Commerce, and by our Community Council as well, the Howth Sutton Community Council. So there's a wide range of opposition to this proposal. But I want to finish, Minister, and the reason why I wanted to table this debate particularly today, because I have written to Minister Coveney as well, and I'm waiting a detailed response from him outlining the logic behind this. But I particularly want to raise whether a cost proposal has actually been carried out, because as I've already outlined, there's so many negatives against introducing this in terms of the impact on businesses and on community groups and a wide range of users. It seems that the only potential logic, if there is one at all, is that it would make money, and yet no evidence has actually been put forward to show that that's the case. And we know that where paid parking has been introduced in other villages and towns in the country, in a lot of areas it's been a disaster. In fact, 1 in 3 schemes are losing money. And local authorities around the country, if it's been reported, are losing millions on paid parking. So, I mean, if there's so many reasons against it, as I said, for a wide range of other reasons, and yet no case has been put forward to any of the interest groups that have been in touch with your department to show that a proper feasibility analysis of the costs and benefits of it has been carried out. So I specifically wanted to ask you today if such an analysis has been carried out by the department. If so, what's the estimated income that's been based on, and what charging structure is that based on in terms of hourly rates and daily rates? What's the estimated cost of operating the system, because there's a huge startup cost for installing parking meters, and then there's an ongoing cost as well for people to police it that needs to be taken into account. Whether analysis has been done of the likely loss of revenue to the state from other sources, like businesses will, there's absolutely no doubt that businesses that are already struggling in Howth will be driven out of business by extra charges being added and jobs will be lost, and has that been taken into account? And then finally, has the experience in other areas being considered? Areas like Dún Laoghaire, where I know the Irish Sailing Association again have written to the Department of the Marine and highlighted the problems that the introduction of paid parking has brought about there. And finally, Minister, I want to ask if such an analysis has been done, and frankly, if you can't tell me that it has, then I think that's quite shocking, because I think such a significant decision should only ever be based on proper research and analysis. But if it has been done, will it be published so that at least all of the stakeholders involved can see the rationale for this and see what basis the department is making the decision?
Thank you very much indeed to hear it. I'd like to thank Senator Power for chairing this debate and also convey Minister Coveney's regrets that he cannot personally be here this afternoon. In terms of the issue raised, and just to set the context, Howth is one of 6 fishery harbour centres operated by the state, each of whose primary purpose is to provide facilities and services for the fishing industry and fisheries-related activity. Howth Fishery Harbour is first and foremost a working fishery harbour. As such, commercial traffic servicing the fishing side and the various ancillary enterprises require full access with appropriate parking arrangements. Social harbour users such as the yacht club and others also require reasonable access to parking. A large number of parking spaces in the fishery harbour are currently being taken up by commuters using the nearby DART service during the working week. All users need to be accommodated in a safe and secure facility. It is generally acknowledged that traffic and parking management within the fishery harbour centres itself needs to be addressed, particularly in light of the concerns raised about safety and emergency access by the Coast Guard, the lifeboat service and An Garda Síochána. The introduction of pay parking is only one of a number of measures being introduced to address these concerns. There has been significant capital investment in the fishery harbour centres in recent years, underpinning both the fishery side and, in parallel, their expanding use for leisure, marine tourism and other maritime enterprises. Howth in particular has a long tradition in both areas. In the current economic climate, the state must be fully committed to maximising the return on its investment. Furthermore, Minister Coveney's department is required to ensure that the fishery harbour centres are run on a financially sound basis. It is in all those contexts that the Minister is giving consideration to the introduction of a charge for parking facilities within Howth Fishery Harbour Centre, just as a charge is made for using any other uses of its other facilities. As provided under the Fishery Harbour Centre Act 1968, all income generated by the Fishery Harbour Centres goes back into a ring-fenced Fishery Harbour Centre Fund that is used exclusively for the day-to-day operating, management and development costs. This is the only source of income available for this purpose. Without it, Fishery Harbour Centres would not function and certainly could not provide a service to their customers, the harbour users and the visiting public. It is illogical to the Minister that some harbour users would expect to continue to use such a facility free of charge, while other harbour users, i.e. those who are already paying into the fund for using the harbour facilities, are effectively paying for its upkeep. The introduction of a paid parking at Howth Fishery Harbour Centre was originally examined in detail in 2007 in the context of a proposed Howth Traffic and Parking Management Plan in conjunction with Fingal County Council. I've no doubt you've seen that report, Senator. The plan did not subsequently proceed. There was a widespread public consultation at the time, and all of the various views that were expressed and submissions that were made at the time are still on file. Minister Coveney is well aware of the concerns as then expressed and is in receipt of new correspondence on this matter on an ongoing basis. Department officials have met with officials at Fingal Council's Operations Department, both formally and informally, in relation to the plans to introduce paid parking as well as other traffic management enhancements. Officials also have met with An Garda Síochána about this and other related matters, and the department engineers have met some of the harbour business tenants individually about new traffic management and road markings, etc. Department officials also attended a recent harbour users forum where pay parking was on the agenda. The current rates and charges order S1 214/2012 provides for a charge for parking in the fishery harbour centres. No tariff has yet been fixed for Howth, but with approximately 500 parking spaces within the boundaries of the fishery harbour centre at present, it is clear that a source of revenue exists in relation to this state asset, which was not provided and cannot be maintained for free. A detailed scheme for pay parking is being developed at present by the department officials, and Minister Coveney is determined that it will be fair to all users of the harbour while ensuring that everybody pays their fair share. And the question of a due diligence, I have no doubt Minister Coveney has carried out a due diligence on the cost benefit, and I have no doubt that report with Fingal, County Council, all of that information will be on file. The new parking arrangement will include pay and display parking for harbour visitors and a permit management system for business users. Regular harbour users would have noticed that all currently available parking spaces have been identified and marked recently. The Department of Agriculture and Food has asked the Planning Department of Fingal Council for guidance on the requirement concerning possible environmental and visual impacts of pay and display machines and associated directional signage, and will be pleased to take account of any requirements and recommendations that may have. The additional revenues to be generated from pay parking at Howth Fishery Harbour will be reinvested in facilities and enhancements that would not otherwise have been possible given the current financial constraints, and these improvements can only be of benefit to the marine and leisure tourism sectors and local economies in general. In the long term, the Minister believes that both the harbour users and Howth people in general will recognise the benefits that would accrue from this previously untapped resource.
Brief question, Senator.
Yes. I thank the Minister for attending the House to give that reply. But I have to say, and I appreciate that you're giving it for Minister Coveney, so you're not in a position, obviously, to answer some of the more detailed questions that I've put to you, and I respect that. But I have to say that there's no evidence from that reply that this has been thought through properly at all. The reply is laced with language about the principle of it, the principle that users should pay. But there's no actual logic there that shows that it's been thought through, particularly, as I said, on a cost-benefit basis. There's no evidence that the real cost of introducing this has actually been looked into the department. That reply, like previous responses from the department on this issue over the last while, is just focusing on the marine aspect. And I appreciate that that's the main focus of the department of the marine. But at the same time, we're supposed to have a whole of government approach here. And it's everybody's responsibility at the cabinet table, not just to consider their own department, but also to look at the impact on local businesses and on community groups and on job losses, and the fact that if people lose their jobs in Howth businesses, they're going to be on social welfare. And there's no evidence from that reply that this proposal has been thought through on that basis. So I respect that you're not in a position to be able to answer those questions, but I would ask you please to take that issue up with Minister Coveney, because this is a serious issue. People will lose jobs, people will be put off travelling out to Howth. It's an area that's totally dependent on visitors, a very, very small population, totally dependent on tourism. And this needs to be thought through properly, and I have to say, from that reply, I wouldn't have any confidence that it has been. So I'd ask you please to ask Minister Coveney to correspond with me directly with the answers to the more specific questions about the cost-benefit aspect of it.
It is a comprehensive reply. Clearly, the fact you have 500 car parking spaces in Howth in a very process part of Dublin. I think clearly when you look at the viability of the fact this was studied in 2007, the due diligence was carried out, all of the information is with Fingal County Council and the cost benefit. Clearly the fact of getting from the emergency service using the facilities, I have no doubt, if you talk about the enhancement of the region and the fact this is one of the six state-owned harbours, and this was raised during the last administration in 2007. And
proceeded with for very good
well,
reason.
obviously that we are now in the legacy of the last government. The legacy of the last government has now very much unfortunately there were the times when the country was awash with money, and there was no decision made of there was a benefit to any business community. But I have no doubt the interaction that's now discussed with business people on the ground in Howth, it is about a collaboration of benefit to the region. And to be honest, you'd have to be from a business sense myself. If you can assume you can have 500 car parking spaces free of charge, please, I come from Sligo City, and it's not nearly the location where Howth is on the harbour and the amenities, and they're paying for parking even in out-of-town centres. So I think that people have got to pay a reasonable charge that will allow the state to to reinvest some of its money. And finally, Minister Coveney is open to any reasonable suggestion in relation to a new parking rate regime. I would like to assure the House that he will try to be fair to all users of the harbour, and while at the same time ensuring that everyone pays their fair share. And we're now in the reality land. The day of, when money was awash with money and money was thrown at everything, that day is gone. We're now getting a cost benefit, and the cost benefit has been carried out in this. Absolutely.
Sorry, but there's just very briefly.
There's no provision for supplementaries at all.
Just one very brief point. I can assure you that the reality of the impact of this is well understood by local businesses who are living with the reality of all the other extra charges that have been put on them and have a genuine fear about this and aren't raising it for any reason other than the fact that they're genuinely worried that they'll lose business as a result.
Minister, we can't have